and welcome to my Oxford PPE interview video. I'm making this just to kind of let you guys know what my experience was like and hopefully to help out any kind of future applicants. So yeah, I'll just tell you a little bit. I originally applied to Worcester College, but I was relocated to Corpus Christi for my interviews. And yeah, I chose PPE just because, all three aspects of the degree, really interest me: philosophy, politics, and economics. And I just found them, incredibly interesting. I would frequently talk about them, debate about them at school. And yeah, it was just kind of effortless for me to find interest in those topics. So, anyways, I got my email from the college on November the 23rd. And then afterwards, they said that my interviews, I would have 3 interviews, 2 interviews on December the 5th, which were economics first and then philosophy. And then December the 6th, I would have politics, and they were all online. Yeah. So my first interview was economics. And for just for any of you kind of thinking that like the interview is going to be like, the first 5 minutes are going to be like, hello, how are you? How's your weekend go? How was your weekend? No, it's not like that. You get into the call, they're on time, and then it's just like, hello, my name is blah blah blah. I teach economics at so and so college. This is my colleague. He will introduce himself. Colleague does the exact same thing, and they're like, right, let's get into it. There's no kind of messing about, because at least my experience, the interviews they were doing, they were saying they were on a really tight schedule, and like each interview was like a rigid 20 minutes time slot. That's it. And then so we got into the first question, and the first question was, what they did is she shared a screen with me, and he was like, okay, can you see my screen? Yeah. And then he made me read a passage, just a paragraph of this article. I'll put a picture of the article in the video. I actually found it. I can't access it because you have to pay to access it. But I found it. It's about the impacts of night lights on eyesight. Anyway, so he made me read, this bit of data. It was just about, kind of the cohort of who was kind of observed in this study. And then afterwards he shows me a graph, and it had 3 columns, and it was basically, he said, please describe, like, what can this graph tell you? And then I just said, okay, I'll just describe what I see. And that's what I did. I just described everything I saw. I said that there was a trend where children that were more exposed to night lights showed recorded greater cases of myopia. So like greater cases of short-sightedness. I didn't know what myopia was. He told me that it was short-sightedness. And then so we spoke about that for a bit, and then he was like, apart from night lights, do you think there are any other factors that could have influenced this? And then perhaps a bit brashly, I was like, oh, genetics is definitely one. I shouldn't have been so kind of concrete. I think I should have just been like, oh, maybe genetics, because then afterwards, his response was like, okay, we're almost out of time, but just tell me why you say that. And I was like, well, genetics, of course, would influence it, and perhaps maybe the nightlight would just speed up the process at which they got myopia. But if their genetics, entail poor eyesight, then they're gonna have poor eyesight. And he's like, okay, thank you. And it passed me on to the next guy. The next guy was like, so imagine 2 countries enter into a free trade agreement, and a car manufacturing company goes out of business. Why is that? And then so he was just talking about like factors that influence businesses in free trade agreements. And so I said, there's increased competition, perhaps labor's cheaper in the other country, perhaps the other country has a comparative advantage. I was quite happy when I said comparative advantage. Perhaps the other country has more skilled labor. Perhaps the other country has cheaper goods, allowing them to sell them at a lower price. Perhaps the other country has, perhaps the other country has it's now allowing larger competitors to enter into the market so they can benefit from economies of scale. And so he was like, okay, that's fine. You seem to be now let's think about it. If it were like a poor country and a rich country, they entered into a free trade agreement, what would happen then? What would be some of the impacts? And then we spoke about that, and then finally the last thing was like, okay, let's look at it more on the side of the workers. What would happen? I said, oh well, perhaps the poor country would see a decrease in unemployment because the cost of labor is cheaper, and they, so they'll do more manual labor, and it may lead to an increase in unemployment in the wealthier nation, or it may actually not, because it frees up additional labor to conduct more higher skilled work, which would positively impact the local GDP. So we spoke about that, and then he was like, right, thank you. And that was that. That was the interview. They just asked me, do I have any additional questions? And I was like, nope, I'm fine. And that was my economics interview. My second interview was my philosophy interview. And once again, same thing. Got into the meeting. Hello, my name is blah, blah, blah. I teach this at this. Let me pass you to my colleague. Same thing. And we got started. And so the first guy was like, let's see. Oh, what makes you a different person from me? From me, from my colleague, from anyone else? What makes you a different person? And then so, I said, well, first you have to define what a person is. And I basically said, like, well, I'm different because, I'm different than you because, my appearance, my location, my experiences, my memories, all that makes me me. And then I kind of walked right into, I was a bit annoyed, looking back, I walked right into this, but, because I should have just been I should have kind of preempted it, I feel, but he was like, well, and he said it, he was like, I hate to break it to you, but as you get older, your appearance changes, your experiences change, everything that you've listed changes, so does that mean that you as a person change? And then I said, well, and then I tried to define person again. I was like, well, I'd have to say that, as a person you change, right? Because I believe a person is a collection of that. But I believe that there's something deeper inside that doesn't change, that remains constant. And I was like, and I said this, I was like, because I know that I am the same person that I'm the same being I was 10 years ago. I'm the same kid. I'm a different person now, but I'm the same kid. And he was like, right, okay. And he was like, so you're saying that there's some sort of substance? And he was like, in philosophy we use the word substance. I was like, yes, substance. And then, so his last question was, so say that there was another parallel universe where there was someone else who had the exact same memories as me, exact same appearance, everything was the same. Is he the same as you? And I said, well, no. And I was like, well, even if it, it seems to go against the principle of what I've said, because the fact that I'm in this universe, so to say, makes me me. All of my circumstances, everything makes me me. You can put all my experiences in another body, but that's still not me. And that's all I think I elaborated a bit more, but I can't really remember. And so he was like, okay, fine, thank you. Then passed me on to the next professor. And the next professor, and this is an important lesson, I think, is that when you find out who's going to be interviewing you, when you get your invitations, look at their page on the college website, because you see what they specialize in, what they research, and this particular professor, I saw that she specialized in, or she was focusing on AI ethics, and the question she asked was, can a robot be a good friend? And then so I said, well, to start I was like, well, I have to define what a friend means. And I think I said initially, friend is someone you enjoy spending time with, and someone that makes you happy or something. And so, like, by that criteria, yeah, a robot can be a good friend. And then she said, well, can an animal be a good friend? And I was like, well, no, because. And then I said, well, for an animal to be a good friend, like here I'm kind of getting like, looking back now, I can pick at everything I said, but here I was like, well, no, because with a friendship you also need like mutuality, like both sides need to like one another. It needs to be mutual. A dog has no say in whether it wants to be your friend or not. If you adopt, like if you adopt a dog, like it can't say like, no, I don't want to be friends with you. It can't say that. And like, even if I said this, like even if the dog is, or she said animal, and I kept relating it back to a dog. I found that easiest. But I was like, even if the dog's wagging its tail in excitement, like the fact that we can't experience its experiences means that we can't be 100% sure that they're happy. That's the argument I gave. So like, no, a dog can't be a good friend. And then she was like, using what you've just said, would you change your initial answer? And I was like, well, no, because it's different. With a robot, you don't have to really worry about, a robot is man-made and is created for for a specific purpose. Dogs aren't. Dogs aren't created to just be our friends. With a robot, you don't have to worry about that mutuality because it cannot think for itself. It's just a program that's been made to carry out this specific function. And then so that was that. I said thank you. She said, yep, that's okay. Any questions? This time because last time after I finished my interview, I went down and my family was like, no, you should ask them a question. You should ask them a question. So I was like, fine, I'll ask them what books they recommend. And they gave me a good recommendation. I'll post a picture of the book one of the professors recommended. I'll put it up somewhere here, I don't know. But I haven't had the chance to read it. But I do hope to read it, actually. It looks quite interesting. And yeah, that was my philosophy interview. My last interview was my politics interview. That was on December the 6th. And yeah, so it started as they all do. Guys, they joined the call. Hello. And then this one was interesting because it was for the first time that I was asked about my personal statement. So I was thrown off a little bit by that. He was like, one of the guys was like, I want to start by asking you about your personal statement. You mentioned a specific book in your personal statement, The Looting Machine, and I did. And he was like, why did you choose The Looting Machine? And I just explained, well, I've always found the economic difficulties and hardship of Africa quite interesting, due to just their vast resource endowment. I don't really feel like they should be. And I found it interesting that the book dived into why, and stuff like the resource curse theory was quite interesting. And so yeah, we spoke about that. He just asked me and he was like, right, that's fine, I'll pass you to my colleague. And then so his colleague, the first thing he asked was, okay, so imagine you're a PPE student studying at Oxford, and your professor says, experts in science use a lot of specialized words and jargon. Laymen who don't agree just don't understand the overwhelming evidence and the theory behind what they're saying. How would you respond to that? And initially, actually, I didn't know what layman meant. Like, I was like, what does layman mean? Yeah, so I didn't. He just explained it, and then I was like, well, I would probably have to disagree with that because, it has a lot of implications, and also a lot of it, what classifies a layman, what classifies, an expert, a lot of that stuff to be defined, and like, it may lead to a kind of censorship, or, it may create like a rhetoric where you can't question the experts because they know better, so to say, and that could lead to a lot of problems. That could be that power could be abused, misused, could lead to corruption. So this statement where just because someone's a expert means that their opinion can't be questioned, that's a very dangerous one. And so I said I'd probably have to disagree with it. And then he was like, yep, okay, that's fine. passed me on to the next guy, and then back to the first guy, and then the first guy was like, okay, imagine you and I are two political scientists. Oh, no. At the beginning he was like, do you know what democratic backsliding is? And I was like, no, I don't. Once he explained it, I realized like I had heard the term before, but I wasn't sure when he said it. And so he's like, right, okay, that's fine. What do you think it means? And I was like, well, the backsliding seems to indicate like a sort of kind of regression or backwards movement. And he was like, right, yeah. It's the kind of the backwards movement of democratic norms in a society, in a political society. Like, can we agree on that definition? And I was like, yeah, I agree. Okay. And he was like, say we go to a country now, and then in 10 years, what can we look for to measure democratic backsliding? And then I said, okay. And initially, I think I was looking too broad. Like, I was saying stuff like, you could look at, how they're free, like whether they have free speech, whether there's any censorship. You could look at their literature, and I was saying that, and he was like, yeah, but, and then the other guy chimed in, and he was like, those are all valid, but what we're really looking for are like concrete methods and ways to measure democratic backsliding, and he said, political scientists tend to disagree a lot, so you need really concrete evidence to prove to them that what you're saying is true. And I was like, right, okay. And then so like I said, what did I say? So like I think he gave me a hint. He was like, okay, so initially I said, the number of candidates standing for a position of power would be one, and he was like, yes. And then he gave me a hint. He was like, okay, the time between elections, that would be one. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, how about the location of the voting booths? And then he started nodding profusely, like, yes. Do you have any more? Can you think of any more? And I was like, okay, just give me a moment. And then so I thought, and I was like, also the type of people who are voting, whether it's a particular demographic. And he was like, yep. And he started nodding a lot. And he was like, yep, you got them all. You got all the answers. Okay, that's fine. And then that was it. He was like, yep, thank you for your time. Do you have any questions? I asked something about one of the other professors, and then that was it. Those are my interviews. Yeah. My opinion, I think they went like okay. I don't know. Actually, today it's the 9th of January, so I get my results tomorrow. So I'm filming this without knowing whether I got in or not, without any feedback. I hope they were good enough, but I'll just have to see. Yeah. My main reason for making this video is just, when I was applying and when I got my interview invitation, I really liked, looking at other videos about Oxford interviews just to give me an idea of what to expect, calm my nerves. And also they were just kind of soothing or just nice to watch, just nice to watch and see other people's experiences. So I ultimately hope, people, future applicants who watch this, you gain some, you just have this as an option to watch, and hopefully it helps, hopefully it's enjoyable. And yeah, I'll probably post a video, I'll probably link it somewhere here, somewhere in the page of my reaction to whether I get in or not, so you guys will probably know whether I got in or not. I don't right now, but yeah, thank you for watching.